South Korean crime action franchise, the Roundup is back for its fourth edition under the title Punishment and has swept the box office once again. It already logged 5 million admissions in just a week after its release. We're joined by Jason Bechervaise for more. Welcome back, Jason.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure as always.
Well, the fourth edition of the Roundup is showing a strong box office performance. In fact, stronger than its predecessors. Where is this strong performance coming from?
Well, I mean, it's a combination of reasons, as with many success stories. I think the film industry is showing signs that it's beginning to bounce back following, a difficult few years during the COVID pandemic. We saw the success of 12 the Day and then Exuma, which surprised industry observers. And so I think the success of this film follows on from that, but I think it's also a very successful franchise. This is the fourth installment. The previous two films sold over 10 million tickets. So it's not really a surprise that it's doing well, but I think there was actually some concern that because the third installment was, widely seen as a disappointment, that perhaps the fourth film, would show signs that it's beginning to lose steam. But actually, it's on the contrary. It's doing very well. It opened with 820,000 admissions on its opening day, which is actually the fourth biggest opening in, the history of the Korean film box office. So, and it's actually surpassed 6 million admissions late last night, so it's now on 6 million tickets sold, so performing very well, and it's also been sold, pre-sold to over 150 territories overseas, so 164 territories to be exact. So it's doing, I think it's going to do pretty well globally as well. Of course, it premiered at the Berlin Film Festival in February.
Definitely. Foreign media outlets are also putting a spotlight on its success, aren't they?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think we're seeing, there's just a lot of interesting Korean content. I'm originally from the UK, and the film is actually being released in the UK today. So it's actually going to screen in theatres, and years ago when I was there, it would be months, if not years, before Korean film would hit theatres in Britain. But now, actually, we're seeing films be released in the United Kingdom just a few days after, its theatrical release in Korea. That was true of 12 the Day and Exuma. And now this film, The Roundup Punishment. And yeah, it received good reviews following its screening at the Berlin Film Festival. The trade publications, Variety, Screen International, they gave it good reviews. And, it was a very simple concept. Ma Dong-seok, or Don Lee, plays this detective. He's obviously very formidable and he's unorthodox. And, it's fun to watch. He is Korea's action hero that was somewhat, I think, solidified following the success of Train to Busan. If you remember, he literally punches his way through the train. And so, we've seen that kind of persona evolve and to, incredible effect in the Roundup films.
Right, a pretty straightforward story, yet really fun and exciting. I'm sure a lot of us can relate to that. Now, hopes are high that the fourth installment may earn $100 million as it did for the second edition back in 2022. Jason, what's your take on the earnings this year?
Yeah, I think it'll do pretty well. Cinema tickets have actually increased in price, so that means that films are generating more revenue. The concern before was that fewer people going to the cinema, and to some, that still is a worry for the film industry. But like I said just a couple of minutes ago, I think the industry is perhaps showing signs that it's turned a corner. We saw that with the success of Exuma, 12 the Day, and this film as well. So given the increase in ticket prices and the fact that a lot of people are going to see this film, yes, it's going to do very well. It's already broken even. So that's encouraging. Only half a dozen films broke even last year, and already we've seen around that number break even this year. So, and we're in May, so we haven't even got to the first half of the year yet. So it is encouraging for the film industry. Yes, this film is going to generate a lot of money. and there's there's premium kind of seating, and you've got premium formats. So the big IMAX screens, and you've got the comfortable seats, and they generate further revenue as well. And people are quite keen to take advantage of those, especially here in Korea, where there's a huge market for that.
Right. But, before I let you go, there are also concerns that the Roundup is taking up all the screens and seats across the country and possibly squeezing out other movies. What's happening here?
Okay, I think there are different ways in which you can view this. You can come from different perspectives. So, it's screened on 80% of the nation's screens.
Right.
So some have taken issue with that. This is not a new problem. When Battleship Island was released a few years ago, the distributor or the studio behind the film was widely criticized for it, and it actually affected the success of it. And those concerns were somewhat muted during the pandemic because exhibitors were struggling, and so films are now beginning to do quite well again, and so these concerns are resurfacing. Now, I think the exhibitors would argue that they built the cinemas and they have every right to screen, the films in their own screens. And also, I think, the exhibitors had a really difficult time during the pandemic. And I think this is an opportunity for them to kind of recoup some of their losses. Some of them really struggle to survive.
Definitely.
And the other issue is that actually, for much of over the past few weeks, there hasn't been a lot out there. So yes, it is dominating screens. It is a problem. And compared to the United States, in terms of the percentage a film will be screened, in terms of the percentage of the number of screens a film will be shown on, it is lower there than it is here. If you look at the films like the Avengers and the Marvel films. That being said, though, I think I'm not sure this concern is generating the same kind of same amount of attention that it did a few years ago. So, I think it's a nuanced issue, but I think the other concern is if you over-regulate the industry and you put a cap on the amount of screens that a film can be shown on, that potentially hampers growth. So that's something that they need to look at.
Certainly. All right, Jason, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it, and you have a great day.
You too. Thank you for having me.